The Chronicles of Spellborn Reborn, an emulated MMORPG that has been an open emulation since 2019 that features fantastic world building, bosses, PvP, dungeons to delve, in-game areas, free to play with no pay to win, play alone or with others, engage in in-game high houses mechanics, enjoy robust and unique character creation, a unique armor and combat system, and whatever this is. Links are in the pinned comment below. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more MMO content. Remember the background because it'll come up again shortly. Enter your credentials and select the Reborn universe, which is another name for server. I have played periodically, which explains why another character exists. To showcase the newbie experience, I roll another tune. Strangely, the very first choice you must make is to select an archetype, which can branch into more defined classes later. On the left, you see a general description, whereas on the right, you see more particular information. In this way, there are 3 initial options, yet you'll see why this choice may be misleading. Regardless, character creation is fairly robust, and the music is phenomenal. It reminds me of Final Fantasy VII and Skyrim soundtracks combined. The psychedelic background juxtaposed with the saturated textures reminds me of Guild Wars 1 and EverQuest. While there's a chest and a torso option, there's no hypersexualization here, which I think grounds the gameplay expectation accordingly. Additionally, you can select your own clothes, which are placed under your armor selection, each of which can be color customized. Armor in Spellborn works quite differently than any other MMO you have likely played, which continues the theme of breaking from conventions. For now, what's important is that you can choose the look of your character without concern of its numerical effects. You can make any choice here, regardless of your class. Since I picked a magical archetype, you can tell I'm effectively making a battle mage. The gear you choose here can be as elaborate as you desire, a detail I adore. You don't have to begin in rags if you don't want to. While there is a potentially missed storytelling opportunity here, it's admittedly a fresh take on gearing in an MMO. Maybe we'll find out why we can start the game equipped like so soon. After you name your character, a cutscene begins. Let's watch.
You will follow in their footsteps. You and many more.
While I appreciate the voice acting, I wish the writers thought of more meaningful words to use, since the evocative exhortation doesn't add to gameplay, nor our understanding of the world. Regardless, we zone in on a flying ship and are presented with a tutorial. The sound design is particularly good. The wind is blowing in the distance, and the wood is crackling underfoot, and the orbs glisten when nearby yet sing when touched. You may have seen a box being held up by a rope. Remember it for later. For now, we're demonstrating that we can jump, turn, and maneuver. It's simple, yet effective. Next, we must open a door. Waiting for a 1.5 seconds to open a door is way too long. Thankfully, there are only a few times when this engagement is necessary. You walk down some steps and are audibly greeted by Stuvan, a detail I appreciate. You can tell the writers here have a sense of humor. The next tutorial is introducing the player to combat. Unfortunately, it's programmatically constructed in such a way that you have to specifically follow the steps of the tutorial to continue, but combat later is not as restrictive, so this tutorial ends up being misleading. Regardless, when you're done, you return and continue to speak to the deckhand. Doing so teaches you how to use the UI to speak with NPCs and to become familiar with icons above their heads as to denote the status of a task. The next tutorial is to find a needle in a haystack, which is no more difficult than opening a door. This tutorial is completely unnecessary because we already learned how to engage with elements to walk down the stairs to begin with. We are then tasked to destroy crates. This is admittedly clever because it requires you to use a bow to destroy the bin that we spoke about earlier. I wish the other tutorials used logical algebra to teach players the other lessons too. After completing these quests, you gain Fame, which is Spellborn's version of levels. This system is different than most other MMOs and we'll cover it more in detail later. For now, when you gain Fame, you also earn attribute points. I worry about making a mistake, so I don't allot any. Moreover, I open this skill book. Like with leveling and armor, skills also work differently than in other MMORPGs. Perhaps you're noticing a trend. After speaking with the deckhand, you're instructed to talk to the captain. After opening another door for 1.5 seconds, you walk up a flight of stairs and another cutscene is rendered, which ends up being useful since it shows you where to go. I disregard it and explore. Keep these charts in mind. I also appreciate the reminder text to find a ladder, yet when I was playing, I didn't even notice them. I also tried to jump off the ship, yet I'm unable to. I find the ladder and begin to climb. I like the quality of the animations, including that which is used to dismount. You speak with the captain and learn more about why you're even on this space boat, after which you're instructed to pick up the charts. I jump from the captain's chamber and learn that there is fall damage. Just like it takes 1.5 seconds to open a door, it takes the same amount of time to pick up paper. Clearly, the game designer must live in a sub-Sahara hut, because there's no way someone who has picked up paper or opened a door thought this duration was a good idea. After you pick up the last item, inauspiciously, a fat and impossibly aerial slug flies adjacently to the boat. Combat music begins! But you can't fight. This is a horribly wasted opportunity. You already taught me how to fight, and this admittedly took me by surprise, which adds excitement to the moment. But I have to talk to the lady before defending the boat? Realizing I had to follow the programmatically structured tutorial, I cynically returned to the captain. Now I have permission to engage, yet the most obvious way down is to jump, but that deals damage, so I begin at a disadvantage. I don't think the developers played this area like players, because why would you put the gamer in their first real combat scenario in an unfair position? Moreover, I can't actually fight the flying slug, but it's Barf offspring, which is confusing. You clearly indicated this flying sack of slime was the antagonist. Why change it at the last second? To add insult to injury, a text pop-up occurs telling you about pips during combat, but no one will actually read this notification in this context. More on pips soon. You can see that every attack spins the cog 1 unit upward. The next attack will use the following skill that's selected, yet you can also horizontally select skills. Eventually, you'll have 5 starting abilities, 5 follow-ups, and so on. You can repeatedly slot skills too for simple builds. I also notice a micro UI bar under the skill window, yet I have no idea what it's for. You may have noticed that the archery ability has a blinding circular effect when used, which I loathe, although I presume it was implemented for balance reasons, in other words so that opponents could see that a range attack was used. When you've defeated the Scythe Hands, their parent pukes on you and is shot from the sky by a completely random arrow. But there's another cutscene. Let's enjoy.
Strange that the story of men does not begin at the beginning, but rather after it should have ended.
Right. I get that Spellborn is inverting many ideas and systems, like riding a boat in the sky and wearing in-game visual armor at the beginning and calling levels fame. Yet simply turning a square upside down and calling it an Arausk is just an equivocation cloaked in generic creativity. On the other hand, the sound and world building teams have created a masterpiece, a world in which someone could easily get lost, explore, and call home. You wonder if these teams even collaborated during development, because it's like I'm eating a $150 steak on a paper plate. Be that as it may, after the cutscene you arrive at a skydock, and Vale tells you that they were saved by another skyship. I would have rather had them show instead of merely tell me that. We apparently fell asleep again, yet that wasn't made clear in the cutscene either, although it does explain why the location around us is different. This explanation just seems to be an excuse to change the scenery. After we complete our conversation, we fame up again, yet earn a skill point. You open your skill deck to learn a new ability. Apparently you don't have to speak to a trainer to learn skills, you simply have to have a point to spend on what's available. The term deck is important too, because it looks like combat has been influenced by card games, a detail I appreciate. When you hover your cursor over skills, a UI window renders detailing what's unique about the skill, including a list of sigils, another divergent detail in Spellborn. Skills can deal damage, trigger a status effect, and more. While I decide which ability to select, I want to clarify that the tutorial is actually a really bad introduction to the game, which causes me to believe it must have been created first, instead of at the end of development, because what happens next is a far more reasonable introduction to the Chronicles of Spellborn. In fact, had the game started you off where we will be in a few moments, we would have a far more consistent and compelling introduction to the game. I learn a new skill and add another one I apparently somehow already knew, but the game didn't tell me. I also change a redundant archery ability. The next quest requires you to use a new ability on the egg, but why wasn't the fight on the ship this tutorial instead? Moreover, the ability I used to destroy the egg is in fact not ideally utilized against single mobs, so this tutorial has you aiming at the wrong target. 2 missed opportunities.
Salutations.
You speak with Captain Jorn one last time, who bids us goodbye as we transition to a newbie zone. We're graced with cutscenes. Let's enjoy.
We remember the time well, the first conflict among the high houses. Ever since the awakening, have they been tested, but always have they proven to be resilient. Try as we might, we could not stop the coming of different times. We could not stop the uprising of old and the discovery of new enemies. And yet, amidst the chaos of so many wars, the Enclave forged its destiny. Now, a new age beckons.
This cutscene was actually fantastic. The flyover suggests where our character is about to adventure topographically, while introducing creatures we may fight. Moreover, the voiceover speaks about specific historical events to tease our interest, and a tantalizing mentioning of houses, which presumably are in-game systems, so we now have both a micro and a macro snapshot of expectation. That is good game design. We're finally greeted with an absolutely breathtaking vista of the world, which is awe-inspiring. Why wasn't this the initial experience? There is no more strangely twisted inversions of expectations, only the alluring gravity of the world building and the area's history. Want to learn how equipment is unique? What about the pip system, or how combat really works? Watch the next episode to find out. Thanks for watching.